Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're connecting from in the world. My name is Ethan, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to everything you need to learn about ARM Labs Innovation Program. Today, our mission is to help you understand what the program is about, what it hopes to achieve, and more importantly, what's in it for you, our potential participants, our potential investors, and the community at large. It's a Friday, so I know there are a lot of plans. So without wasting much time, I will go straight to introducing our speakers for the day. First up, we have Ina Alogu, the Director for Digital Transformation at the ARM Group. He also wears the hat of a Director for the ARM Labs Initiative. Welcome, Ina. Please turn on and say hello.
Hello, Ethan. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for taking time out to join us today to learn about the ARM Labs Innovation Program. I'm sure you'll find the next 1 hour or so very, very useful to any plans you have to grow a startup, or if you know someone who's looking to do the same. Looking forward to chatting with you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ina. Ina's going to come up a lot through the session, so be ready for him. Our second speaker for the day is Oluwaduni Fanibe. She's a program manager with Techstars, one of the largest pre-seed investors in the world. She is currently the program manager for the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator. Oluwaduni, do you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to spending the next 1 hour with you.
Awesome. Awesome. So between these two speakers is pretty much a well and wealth of knowledge for everything you need to know about our innovation and accelerator programs. So here are a couple of house rules. Pardon me. There is no audio access. Unfortunately, we can't hear your voice. But however, you can leave your questions in the Q&A section of your application, and we will answer them in the course of this session. If we do run out of time and don't get to your question, God forbid, rest assured we will answer it post-session and then send it to all of you via the email which you registered for this event. We have received quite a number of questions before we even got here today. So, and to save time, Ina and the team has creatively put together a very short presentation about the innovation program that can preemptively answer a lot of these questions. It's quite short, not to worry, we'll still answer the questions live. Like I said, you don't have to wait for it to finish. Just put your questions in the Q&A section below, and we'll get right to it. So Ina, if you could please unmute your mic, turn on your video, and take us through what the ARM Labs Innovation Program is about and what's in it for everyone. Thank you.
Great, and thanks, Ethan, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening once again. So what I'm going to do over the last couple of minutes is to walk you through what the ARM Labs Innovation Program is, and the way I structured how to pass that information to you is to give you a very brief history about how the whole journey began. And then I'll give you a very brief overview of what the program is, and give you just a very high-level perspective of what the program entails, with targets, what you stand to gain when you get into the program. I'll then talk you through some of the program numbers we've had from the previous cohorts that we've run, the 4 of them that we've run so far. And I'll show you some of the alumni startups that have passed through that program. So let's go with a little bit of history. Yeah, about 5 years ago, ARM, started this journey by deciding to pursue a strategy that focuses on supporting startups that are leveraging technology to solve specific problems in the Nigerian financial services industry. But not just that, the strategy also seeks to facilitate the effort of startups, who are innovating to develop solutions that change how users access and consume financial services. Now, the very first version of the ARM Labs Innovation Program was launched in 2019 in partnership with a company called Ventures Platform. But over time, it has evolved to become what we consider to be a specialized pre-accelerator program that's designed to support early-stage startups and even intending entrepreneurs in refining their business ideas and getting their minimum viable products, refined to a level where we can then prepare them to, participate in the full-fledged accelerator. As I said, the very first version was launched in 2019. And what we've done with the last cohort is to standardize the investment ticket size and whatever equity we're asking for in return, So it's a $50,000 investment in exchange for 6% equity in the company who is selected to get into the program. The program admits 5 startups every cohort. So every cohort you have 5 startups who would get $50,000 investment from ARM Labs and would have to commit 6% equity in return for that investment. But there's several other benefits that I'll talk about as we go on. But one thing to mention is that ARM has been recognized for the work that it's been doing around the ARM Labs Innovation Program. So recently in 2020, we received a corporate startup awards in the mid-cap startup stars category, where we're recognized for the work we're doing supporting tech startups with the ARM Labs Innovation Program. Now, just to talk you a little bit through some of the program numbers, as I said, we've run 4 cohorts already, starting in 2019. 21 startups have passed through the 4 cohorts, and 12 of them have received investment from ARM, and those investments have totaled $410,000. Today, the combined value of that $410,000 investment from ARM is now worth $2 million. And 150 founders have been tutored through the 4 previous cohorts. One thing to mention is that some of the alumni the alumni startups who have passed through the previous cohorts have gone on to participate in some global accelerator programs. For example, we had 2 startups from cohort 3 that eventually made it into the Techstars Toronto program. 3 of the startups from cohort 4 actually made it into the final selection process for the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator program, but only one of them eventually made it into the final 12. So what we then found was that tech startups who had passed through these programs actually stood a better chance in getting into global standard and competitive accelerators like the Techstars program run in different cities in different parts of the world. As I said, the benefits, I've just summarized them into 4 categories. Of course, you have obviously the investment, $50,000 investment for 6% equity that you get if you do make it into the program. But we then expose you to 2 categories of mentors. The first category of mentors would be industry experts who can, you can gain a lot from their wealth of experience around technology, business, product management, compliance, and different areas that are necessary for a startup's business to grow and succeed. But the second category of mentors that we will be exposing the startups to would be angel investors who may decide to co-invest with ARM at the end of the program. But those angel investors would act as your mentors and help you to refine and build your value proposition and get you to a stage where you are actually investor pitch ready. And during that process, we are hopeful that some of the angel investors will then become interested in, doing a follow-on investment in addition to the investment you receive from ARM Labs. We'll also be offering workspace for all 5 startups that make it into the program. That's it, that's at least 6 people at a time. And I think one of the biggest value that any startup would get from coming through this program is the partnership and integration opportunities that you may be exposed to by speaking with the subsidiaries in the ARM group. So if you have value proposition that aligns with the growth and expansion plans of any of the ARM subsidiaries, the program allows you to have that interaction with that business, see where the areas of synergy, and where you can agree on a commercial agreement that is beneficial to both parties. You can then integrate, and you can have access to markets and a customer segment that you ordinarily have spent a lot in marketing to be able to acquire. Just to give you an idea of some of the startups that have passed through the previous programs, some of the names here you would have noticed are looking very familiar. We have startups that are in fintech, property tech, and in several other industries, wealth tech, and so on and so forth, that are passed through the program. So hopefully you would get the chance to, apply for the program, and hopefully you would, get to see as one of the startups that get selected as one of the top 5. All right. So that's an overview of the program. Thank you all for listening, but I'll be back shortly to talk about other questions that you sent through.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Ina. really appreciate you understanding that, we're very short on time, but it was very concise. It was very to the point and very informative. So, ladies and gentlemen, the ball is now in your court. We are open to take your questions. I can see questions are already rolling in. One of the biggest questions is, I know that ARM runs several accelerators. What is the difference between the ARM and Labs Innovation Program and the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator? Duni, maybe you can open by walking us through what the fundamental difference is from your perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ethan. So first, the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator is a partnership between Techstars, the biggest pre-seed investor in the world, and ARM Labs, that is a subsidiary of ARM. And ARM is the biggest non-banking financial institution in Nigeria. There are several differences between both programs, from the program type to the geographical focus, the vertical focus for 2023, the funding terms, and the duration of the program. I think the very first thing to start with is the types of startups we target. So the innovation program supports early stage startups or tech entrepreneurs and helps them refine their business ideas. What that means is, without an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, you're able to get into the innovation program. Whereas the Techstars Accelerator, the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator, only accepts startups with a defined MVP and are already generating revenue. So if you are not generating revenue and do not have a defined MVP, it isn't advisable that you apply to the Techstars program. It's better you apply to the innovation program. In terms of the geographical focus, the innovation program focuses on Nigerian startups, whereas the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator supports startups in any African markets. Our previous cohort had startups from Kenya and Nigeria, and this year we're looking to have more country representation. The vertical focus for this year for the innovation program is fintech, pension tech, digital trade, and data intelligence. Whereas the vertical focus for the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator is fintech, mobility, e-commerce, and talent tech. The funding, in terms of funding, the ARM Labs Innovation Program offers you $50,000 for 6% equity, and I'm sure Ina will speak more about this as we go on. Whereas the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator invests up to $120,000 for 6% equity. I can speak more about the terms of the deal later on. The final difference is in the duration of the program. The ARM Labs Innovation Program is on for 6 weeks, whereas the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator Program is an in-person program that lasts 14 weeks. Ina, I don't know if there's anything I missed there. Do you want to jump in?
Oh yeah, you pretty much captured everything. Just wanted to add something that kind of answers David Asuzo's question. So David says, can a pre-revenue startup stand a chance to be accepted into the program? As Oluwadune had described, the ARM Labs Innovation Program is for very early stage companies and is actually designed to help you refine your MVP. And what that means is that if you don't have an MVP, but if you have a business idea or a value proposition that has a viable market, and we can tell that the founders of that company, have the right team to be able to build that into an actual successful business, then you do stand a chance to be accepted into the program. And that also means if you're pre-revenue. So if you don't have an MVP, then it means you don't really have a product that you've launched in the market for your customers to pay for. So the answer is yes, you can apply to the innovation program if you're pre-revenue. What the innovation program would do is, take you through a set of program activities that would then get you to refine your value proposition and perhaps get your MVP to the stage of launch, where you can then become eligible to apply for the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator. So the analogy I like to use is to think of it like a primary and secondary school, right? So if you've gone through primary school, chances are when you do get into secondary school, you have the right foundations to be able to perform optimally to the expectations of the secondary school that you've gotten into. So if you think about the ARM Labs Innovation Program as a primary school, the ARM Labs Techstars Accelerator as a secondary school, where the former prepares you and gets you to a position where you stand a better chance to be able to compete and get into any of the standard global accelerators, including Techstars. That's a very good way to describe it. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I think pretty much that's
Fantastic. Oh, great. So thanks a little bit. Thanks, Ina. There's some rapid fire questions here, and I'll just allocate them accordingly. So Tunde Lawi wants to know, how long does the approval process take? Ina, this is for you. I'm guessing he's talking about selection process.
right. So the current call for application for the ARM Labs Innovation Program has actually, opened last Monday, May 15th, and it closes June 15th. So there is a 2-week period where there is a rigorous selection process where we take the total number of applicants and then we create a short list, and then we screen down to 15 and eventually to the final 5. So it's a 2-week process. And then afterwards, the final 5 startups that make it into the program go through a due diligence check to be sure that they meet the minimum criteria that we've set for companies who can be admitted into the program.
Copy that. The next one is a double-pronged question. So one side, you can answer, and then Oluwadun, you can also answer as well. Mariam also says, can I apply for film tech business? And for Oluwadun, does that come under entertainment tech? So, you first for the innovation program.
Great. So even though this cohort 5.0, which takes place in 2023, the theme is focused on fintechs, pension tech, digital trade, and data intelligence. That doesn't mean if we find a startup that operates in a vertical that is outside these 4 verticals, but has very good potential for growth and scale and can potentially become a very successful company, we can consider having you admitted. I mean, it's happened before in the previous cohorts where we've had tech startups that applied from different verticals outside the original focus that the program was designed. And then when we did go through the value proposition and we interviewed the founders, we did find that there was a viable market for that value proposition, and we felt that it was worthy to make a case for them to be admitted into the program. Yeah.
Unit, does this also apply to you?
Absolutely.
The accelerator program?
Absolutely, it does apply to us. So while we have a sector focus or a vertical focus, we are open to accepting startups that are building fantastic businesses and are not directly connected to those sectors. So similar to the innovation program, for our inaugural cohort last year, we ended up taking 4 startups outside of our vertical focus. So we're open to taking startups outside the vertical focus as long as they are tech enabled.
Okay, great. So the next question was sort of already answered during the presentation, but I guess this person may have missed it, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Godwin Tom Brown wants to know, why is the ARM Labs Innovation Program only focusing on startups residing in Lagos? I'm not sure that's entirely accurate, but I'll leave that to you.
Yes, so that's not accurate. So it focuses on startups from everywhere in Nigeria. So the geographic focus is Nigeria. So if you look at the slide that is currently displaying, you would find that it's clearly defined that the geographic focus for the ARM Labs Innovation Program is focused on tech startups that operate in the Nigerian market. Now, I've very carefully said in the Nigerian market, because you may have founders who may be based outside Nigeria, but have built solutions that are targeted towards customers within the Nigerian geography. So it doesn't matter where you are physically as a founder, as long as your market is in Nigeria. And that's the focus for the ARM Labs Innovation Program. If you do operate in other markets outside Nigeria and other parts of Africa, then perhaps you would need to then apply for the ARM Labs Techstars Accelerator Program.
Copy that. Another rapid fire. Is the innovation program in person or online or both? This is an anonymous attendee. Please leave your name in the comments, or otherwise I may not read your questions. Go ahead, Ina.
So it's hybrid. Some of the program activities would be done virtually, but some of the program activities are actually much more efficient if they're had with the startups physically there interacting, especially with the mentor sessions. So it's both physical and virtual. And that's the reason why we've made provision for workspace for the 5 startups who will be admitted into the program.
Awesome. This next question cuts across both programs. Can I apply for the ARM Labs Innovation Program and the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator Program in the same cycle? I mean, you gotta love my people in Nigeria. We just want everything, just get it all, same cycle.
Right. So should I go ahead?
I think you can start, and Oluwaduni can back you up, or whichever way you guys want to answer it.
I think I'll start and then Ina will finish.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, you can. The way the programs are set up is both applications for both programs are open at the moment, but you would have completed the innovation program if you get accepted to the innovation program before the Textiles Accelerator opens. Like Ina said earlier, we've had cases where startups who have gone through the innovation program went on to a Textiles Accelerator. So yes, you can do that if you think you have the capacity for 2 accelerators in 1 year. The Textiles, I'm not sure when the innovation program begins, but the Textiles Accelerator begins in November and ends February. I know the innovation program ends way before that. So you can apply to both of them and you can attend both in the same year.
Now, the last point that Oluwaduni mentioned is very critical because both programs are intensive. So you have to have the strength to be able to go through both programs. But the answer is a very big yes. Now, both programs, like Oluwaduni had mentioned, have been, scheduled to run at 2 different times. So the ARM Labs Innovation Program kicks off officially July the 24th and then ends officially August the 30th. And that's way before the ARM Labs Textiles Program commences in November. So you can get into the ARM Labs Innovation Program, complete that program, and perhaps work 2 months that you can, catch your breath and rest. And hopefully, if you do get into the Textiles Program, you can then gain all of the benefits from both programs. But I think one very important thing to mention is that if you get accepted in the ARM Labs Innovation Program and you're applying for the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator, it's not a guarantee that you'll make it into the ARM Labs Textiles Accelerator Program because you got accepted into the Innovation Program. You're going to have to compete with every other person who didn't have the chance to participate in the Innovation Program. But what the Innovation Program does is that it puts you in a better position to stand a better chance of getting in because you'll be better prepared in terms of your MVP and your value proposition, your refinement of your value proposition.
Okay, excellent. So it's not a free passport to just get into the next program. I suspect David Asuzo is a founder because his questions are just coming in rapid fire. He said, when exactly will he know if he's been accepted or rejected?
So as I said, the call for application for the ARM Labs Innovation Program has opened May the 25th. It's going to close May 15th. It's going to close June 15th. And during that 2-week period, so I think 2 weeks right after June 15th will be when you know for sure whether you got accepted or you didn't make it into the program. Because at the end of the 2-week selection process, we will then have the final 5 startups that appear to have the best value proposition of every other person that applied for the program.
Excellent. The next question.
Do you want to also mention?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ina. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ina. So yeah, for ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator, applications are open as well. Our applications, however, close on the 9th of August, and final notifications should go out in the final week of September. The program begins on the 14th of November and then closes 15th of February with demo day. So to answer your question, you will know by the end of September if you have been selected or not selected. But that's only if you make it past the first and second interview stage. So typically we have 3 stages of interview. If you do not make it past the first interview, you will know by the end of August. But if you make it past the first and second interview, down to the final stage of screening, which is the 3rd stage, you will know by the end of September.
Okay, that's perfect. So it kind of works out for, I think it was Miriam that was asking earlier. So if you don't make it for, primary school, you can apply to secondary school, and the timing just works out perfectly. This question cuts across both programs, so maybe Oluwaduni, you can start. Is the funding fully in cash or in services? Afolabi Kilaso wants to know. Basically, what is the funding structure?
Thanks, Ethan. So 2 questions in one, clearly. The $120,000 is fully in cash, but if you get accepted to the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator, Techstars provides perks. Perks are benefits of up to $1 million, an additional $1 million. So I'm talking perks from AWS, perks from Google Cloud, perks from Stripe, perks from Brex, from over 100 service providers that come up to a total of $1 million. To answer the question on the funding structure, so you get we charge a 6% fee to participate in the program, and you get a $20,000 check before the program begins. That is once you've completed your due diligence and you signed all your agreements, we wire you the $20,000. There's an additional but optional $100,000 convertible note. It converts after 2 years. So typically it converts after a year, but then if you're unable, and it converts after you raise a round of over $250,000 in financing. If you are, however, unable to raise your first round, if you're unable to raise a round within the first year of finishing from the program, we extend that by an extra year for you. The interest rate on the convertible note is an annual interest rate of 5%. All of this information is available on the Techstars website. So if you just Google Techstars investment terms, it's explained even in more detail.
So in terms of the ARM Labs Innovation Program, just give you some information, some more information about the structure of the funding. Because the ARM Labs Innovation Program deals with very early stage startups, it's very difficult to define a valuation at that particular point in time, because you probably are pre-MVP, you are pre-revenue, you don't yet have customers. So it's very difficult to have verifiable criteria to use to get a fair market value from a valuation perspective. So the ARM Labs Innovation Program invests through something called a SAFE. The SAFE is an acronym for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. So SAFE is Simple Agreement for Future Equity. And as the name implies, what it simply means is it's a type of investment contract commonly used for very early stage startup financing, where the investor agrees that the equity that they're getting in return for the funding that they're provided to the startup only converts when there is a future event that is the 6% equity that you are actually giving up in exchange for $50,000 investment from ARM Labs does not actually, you don't have to give it up right away. It only converts when there are two major events. The first event is the equity converts when you are raising future investments from a venture capital fund, okay? Or when you're selling the company. So it is a liquidity event that then triggers the 6% conversion that is defined in the SAFE agreement.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Oluwaduni. Thanks a lot, Ina. Miriam would also like to know what digital trade means, basically in English. Is it e-commerce? What exactly does that, what vertical does that define?
Okay, so there are different sub-verticals on that digital trade, yeah? So if you think about one of the use cases for digital trade, be it e-commerce, and let's take a sub-vertical for e-commerce, for example. Small businesses who need to have a digital presence need to leverage digital tools for operational efficiency. And one of those tools could be inventory management, for example. So the small mom and pop shops, for example, typically manage their inventory either written in an exercise book, or you may do it in Excel, but that's not very efficient. So if you're creating a digital presence, whether you're going to be listed on the marketplace or a storefront, the solution, an example of a digital trade solution is one that helps you digitally manage your inventory and tells you when there's stock out and so on and so forth. Another example of a digital trade sub-vertical would be logistics. So if you provide solutions that facilitate the fulfillment of orders from a digital merchant to a consumer, you would be said to be providing a service on that digital trade. So essentially anything that facilitates trade digitally, as the name implies, would fall into that vertical, but you do have several sub-verticals that qualify as digital trade.
Okay, that's great. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. Adam John wants to know, what if your e-commerce company is just generating very little revenue? Can you still apply to the innovation program?
If the e-commerce
company,
Mhm.
yeah, is generating very little revenue, just generating a very little, a little revenue. It's already making money, but not a lot.
Oh,
And
yeah.
can they still apply?
Yeah, we already said that. So the
Yes,
innovation.
I suspect that was a question for the other program, not the innovation program, because we've been covering it. But Ina, please go on.
Oh yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. We did mention that you don't have to have an MVP developed for you to qualify as an eligible startup to apply for the innovation program. I think your question more would be perhaps targeted for the Techstars program that, the minimum requirements requires that you have an MVP. So maybe Oluwadoni, do you want to chip in?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ina. So our preference is for you to be generating revenue. So regardless of how little it is, it sounds like you have some revenue, but you're not convinced it's enough. I would encourage you to still apply. As long as you have revenue, as long as you have an MVP, please go ahead and apply to the Techstars Accelerator.
I mean, that's what accelerators are about, is to accelerate your small revenue to become very big revenue in a short period of time.
Yeah. So I'm going to apologize to both of you again. This is how these AMAs are. Some people join late. Some people ask the same question in a different way. So please indulge our crowd and let's just keep giving them the answers until we run out of time. And on that note, I have a question that sounds exactly like the last question, but not really. I'm just kidding. Patrick Claudius wants to know, what is the vetting process like and the criteria? What does it look like for fintech projects? Do you accept fintech solutions that uses infusion of cryptocurrency? That's a double-pronged question. And this is for both programs. I don't know who wants to go first.
I think Ina should go first.
Okay, so the question is, do we accept startups that have an e-commerce value proposition that have crypto?
One.
Fintech with
and
crypto.
then what it,
Okay.
correct, that's the first part. And the second part is, what is the vetting process for the fintech startups,
Okay.
essentially?
All right, so let me start with the second part, which is what is the vetting process. The ARM Labs Innovation Program adopts a very similar approach to selecting the final 5 that make it into the cohort. And what you have is you have a selection committee that does the initial screening. The selection committee comprises, members from, different expertise and different backgrounds. And what they do essentially is that they take each application and they carefully screen the application for a defined criteria that I cannot reveal to you at this time. But it typically just checks that your value proposition has an actual problem that it's solving, and that the problem is big enough to allow the business to scale, and that you have the right solution that addresses that problem. But more importantly, it looks at the quality of the team. In companies in a very early stage, what really matters is the commitment and the competence of the team that is meant to drive that company to fruition. So all of those things are taken into consideration, and the startups that score the best in all of these areas are the ones that move on to the next stage. So with the ARM Labs Innovation Program, the total number of applications are screened down to 30, then screened down to 15, and in the face-to-face interview process, we then screen down to the final 5. But with the final 15, what you then have is a different composition of the screening committee, that comprises industry experts, very senior leaders from the ARM subsidiary businesses, and other people who would just create a very complete mix of people of diverse backgrounds and expertise. But these are people who have actually seen companies grow and fail, so they can tell when there is a value proposition that won't succeed. And what they would do is essentially just go through an interview process where they'll ask you very probing questions about your business, about the quality, the problem you're solving, about the market size, about the suitability of a solution to address that problem, and about your team. And based on your responses to those questions, they would typically then make a decision, and each of the judges would score. And the top 5 startups with the highest scores would be the ones who will make it into the program. So that's the selection process for the ARM Labs Innovation Program. The second question, before I hand back to Oluwaduni, that had to do with what's it called?
Infusion of cryptocurrency in the solution.
So it's difficult for me to answer that question, but the due diligence checks would typically determine whether or not you are involved in a business that is not maybe sanctioned by any of the regulators in Nigeria. But if you're in a line of business that is not in violation of any existent regulation from regulatory entities that regulate ARM or any of its affiliates, then you shouldn't have a problem. I think that's the best answer I can give at this point.
I think it's a fair answer. Joni, do you want to add anything to that?
To be honest, there's not much to add. Our selection process is pretty similar. Like I said earlier, for the ARM Labs Lagos Texas Accelerator, you go through 3 stages. Your first interview, the second interview, which is typically with the program PM and MD, so myself and my managing director, Oyin Sholabo. And the final stage, you face a screening committee of investors, founders, experts from the ecosystem and outside the ecosystem, given that Techstars is a global pre-seed investor, global investor. On the fintech and cryptocurrency question, my answer is very similar to Ina's. I'm not sure right now, but I think Techstars has a separate crypto or Web3. To be honest, I can't say for certain. We have 52 programs with various focuses, but given the situation with crypto and regulation in Nigeria, it may be a little difficult to go ahead with that.
Great. And just to help with that answer, I think who asked that was Tunde. We will probe a little further beyond this session, and whatever information I get from Oluwaduni and as an add-on, we will send that to you. At least I sort of committed on their behalf live, so there's pretty much no escaping that. Quick rapid question, short answer for Oluwaduni and Ina. Is there age restriction?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We've had 19-year-old founders go through a Techstars accelerator. So there's no age description, there's no age restriction, there's no, we actually prefer, and I'm not saying this on behalf of Techstars, this is a personal opinion. I believe younger people are more innovative. No shade to the older people on the call. Younger people are more innovative. So regardless of how young you are, as long as you understand your market, as long as you know what you're building, you know your product really well. And just as a segue, typically what we look out for when we're interviewing, aside your MVP being defined and your and the fact that you're generating revenue, we look at your team. So the strength of your team, the composition of your team, markets, traction, and products. But what we say is we look at 4 things, and the first 3 things are team, because co-founder disagreements or co-founder breakups are the biggest reason why startups fail. So that's very important to us. So no, your age doesn't matter. What matters to us is that you have a defined MVP, you're making some money regardless of how little, you understand your markets, you have and you have a great team. So yeah. Ina, is there anything you want to add?
Well, it's never too late to make it. Some people make it at 19, some people make it at 20, some make it at 50. And the doors are open to any founder of any age. But we want to give everybody the opportunity to be able to grow a successful business, regardless of whether or not you are Gen Z, Gen X, Gen A, B, C, doesn't matter.
It's a very balanced response from both sides. Oluwaduni leans more towards the young, very creative. And Ina says, you're never too gray to make it. Just trying to be political.
Just to clarify, right? That's a personal opinion. That's a personal opinion.
I hear you.
Opinion. Yeah.
I agree. I'm not sure Joshua attached would agree with all the answer, but let me ask his question. He says, hi, my name is Joshua. Would you accept a startup with one founder that's building an AI product that helps fintechs predict fraud with a 90% accuracy rate, emphasis on one founder?
I mean, Ina, do you want to go or do I go first?
Well, I guess there's startups that have made it into the program and are single founders. I think what's more important is that you satisfy the selection panel that as a single founder, you have all of the qualities, soft and hard skills and experience to be able to drive, and the dedication rather, and also the dedication in addition to having all of the skills and all the in-depth knowledge around the market to be able to grow that business. So the answer is it's possible for a single founder to be admitted into the program, as long as you're able to convince the selection committee or the panel of judges who would be, if you do make it into the final 15, that you've got what it takes as a single founder to be able to grow and scale this business.
Absolutely nothing to add there. Ina has said it all, and it's the same for us. We understand that the founding journey is an incredibly difficult one. It's not an easy thing to be a founder, and we recognize that it's easier when you are not doing it alone. But if you're able to convince us that this is something you're capable of, we're happy to have you on board.
I mean, there's a reason why they said 2 heads are better than one. Exactly. That doesn't mean 1 head is not good.
I was going to say that statement is not complete at all, but it goes on to talk about 3 and so on. But I get your point. Ajike additional wants to know which of the programs is more suitable for an idea stage business, basically PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I would say I would say the innovation program, because and that is because
you just push that to Ina just like that, and take this PowerPoint. All right, cool.
Yeah, the innovation program for sure, because like we said, to get into the Techstars Accelerator, you need to have a defined MVP and be generating some revenue. So if you're at the idea stage, the innovation program is there to help you and prepare you for a global accelerator like the Techstars Accelerator.
And by the way, for those who don't know what an MVP means, it means minimum viable product. So you have to have a product with a minimum set of features that is usable for a customer and at least gets the customer to be able to pay for it. But like you rightly said, if your idea, or rather if your value proposition is still a PowerPoint and is not yet an MVP, yes, the program to apply for will be the ARM Labs Innovation Program, but it's got to be one hell of a PowerPoint presentation to convince the panel of judges, because you have to tick all the boxes. You have to convince them that, like I said, there is an actual problem that you're solving. The problem is big enough to allow you to scale. You have the right solution that addresses that problem, and you have the right team to be able to, take that business through all of the different pits and falls that startups typically go through to become a very successful business. It's possible, but it has to be one hell of a PowerPoint presentation that delivers on all the criteria that we look out for when we do select the final 5.
Fantastic. Some very quick rapid fire questions. Does it apply to NGOs? Just give me a short answer, guys. I have to ask, it's my job.
No, so you cannot, and I think I can confidently answer for both programs. You can, if you're an NGO, this isn't the right program for you. We are not, and I say this in the most respectful way possible, we're not giving away money, we are investing money. So we do not invest in for-profit businesses. We expect you to generate revenue.
Absolutely. Oluwadun is absolutely spot on. It is an investment, it's not a grant. So an investment, there is an expectation that an investment, the value of the equity that was gotten in return for that investment would increase in valuation. And that's why you keep hearing us talking about valuation, which is the value of your company. That is typically a factor of how much value your company generates, whether it's revenue or any other thing that translates and can be tied to revenue.
Okay, great. Let me go to the bit more complicated question. Anthony Bennett says, what are the opportunities for partnership with ARM cohorts or private participation? Say a private investor who's also looking for companies to invest in. I think he's an investor.
Okay.
So is that innovation or labs? I didn't get that correctly.
Innovation, that's for the innovation program. So what are the opportunities for partnerships with ARM cohorts for private participation? Basically, how can he get involved? And so he's basically saying for an investor who's looking for companies to invest in. So are there any opportunities to invest in these startups?
Right. And I think it also applies to the textiles program as well. So if you're interested in co-investing in any of the startups that the ARM Labs has invested in the ARM Labs Innovation Program, you're very welcome to come have a conversation with us, and we're happy to make an introduction to all of the companies. And you can decide which ones you want to invest in. In fact, we encourage investors to also co-invest. Many investors will say to you that we're more comfortable investing if we see an entity like ARM has already invested, because it's something they must have seen that shows that there's potential for this company to grow. But yes, we're very happy to open those conversations with you. And what we'll do is just introduce you to the companies in the portfolio, and then you can have a conversation with them, and then you can make a decision on which ones you want to invest in. And I think the same applies to the ARM Labs Textiles program.
Yes, Ina, that's correct. So nothing to add there for me. Ina has said it all.
Great. This is the same question in a different format. I think Ina has answered this before, but he requires some more clarification. This is from someone in Ghana, Arnold Kavapour. He says, do you accept startups from other West African countries for the ARM Labs Innovation Program? I understand the focus is Nigeria, but you had mentioned earlier about, if the solution is targeted at Nigeria. So what applies or what doesn't apply?
You must have a market in Nigeria. So if your market is Nigeria and you're operating outside Nigeria, you could still qualify. But for now, maybe it might change in the future. I can't tell you for now. But the ARM Labs Innovation Program focuses on startups that are delivering value to the Nigerian market. The ARM Labs Textiles Accelerator Program, on the other hand, even though it's called the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator, actually accepts startups that operate in every other market in Africa. And I think we did have 2 Kenyan startups that didn't have a market presence in Nigeria that participated in the last program in Oluwaduni.
Yes, Ina, that's correct.
Okay.
Great. Okay, some sensitive questions here, but like I said, I will ask them. Let's see where we go from here. Is priority given to women founders in either of the programs there?
Okay, so let me answer the question differently. What we found is that when we open the call for applications, usually we find an overwhelming majority of male founders. But when we take all of the companies through the selection process, it turns out that many of the female founders actually perform very, very, very exceptionally. And there's a very interesting story from the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator that I'll allow Oluwaduni to tell you about, and that should encourage you as a female founder to come and participate. Female founders have some unique leadership skills that actually, put them, neck to neck with the male counterparts, and in fact, in many cases, outperform their male counterparts. But Oluwaduni, did you want to provide insights into the interesting thing we saw from the last cohort of the ARM Labs Accelerator?
Absolutely, and I'll try to do it without divulging too much information. So when the applications initially closed, we discovered that over 90% of the applicants were male. So most of the applications had come from male founders. We then started sourcing female founders. So we opened applications and encouraged female founders to apply. Long and short of the story is, after going through all stages of the application, we ended up with a cohort. So 12 startups, and 6 of the 12 startups had female CEOs, and additional 2 had female COOs. So we were well represented. We had great gender diversity in the class. On the question of whether or not we prioritize women, we are investors. This is where we're not giving the money away. It's not about what we believe in personally, it's about what the numbers say. So we're going to invest in the best businesses. We encourage women to apply. I am a woman, I am a feminist. I'm very passionate about having more women in the ecosystem. So founders, investors, but at the end of the day, we're just gonna choose the best.
And the message that the statistics Oluwaduni just told you about is passing, is that you don't need any special preference to stand a good chance to get into the program. So the 50% representation in the last cohort did not require a special consideration for female founders. It's that the companies that were founded by females competed with the companies that were founded by males, and a greater number, by the way, but still had a 50% representation when the final 12 were chosen. And what that says to you is, as a female founder, you don't need any special favors. You are actually that good, and you just need to believe in yourself. and which is one of the biggest issues we find with female founders, not having a very good representation when you compare the numbers to the male founders in this part of the world. But you're actually good enough to not need any special consideration for you to be able to get into any of the two programs.
Great. So I'm going to take some really short ones and then go to the complicated ones. I think Cyril's asked the same question in a different way about age limits for either accelerators. The answer is still no, there are no age limits. Just nod, guys. Yes, that's correct. No age limits.
Right.
Fantastic. Do you help candidates who apply in building a team, or do I have to come with a team already? That, I think we sort of answered that in one way or another, but give me a short answer. Yeah, so a bit more complicated. Do selected cohorts from the innovation program and the Lagos Textiles Accelerator program share the same working space, and are there opportunities to collaborate during the program?
Yeah, I think I'll take that one. So the long-winded answer is no, is no. You know what? I'll just answer. During the program, so the ARM Labs Innovation Program is a hybrid program. So you have a working space for the duration of the program. The ARM Labs Innovation Program is a hybrid program, so you have a working space for the duration of the program. Ina, that's correct, right?
That is correct.
Yes. For the ARM Labs Techstars program, during the 14 weeks, we also provide you with a working space. So during the program, you are not going to be in the same space as the other founders, Group A and Group B, Group A being the innovation program, Group B being the Textiles Accelerator program. So during the program, you will work from separate office spaces. But ARM Labs is the partner for the Textiles program, and ARM Labs owns the innovation program. And they have this big, beautiful, very spacious office. And they're kind enough to open up their office space to founders from both programs, even after the program. So if that is made available, if there is office space after your program has ended and ARM asks, there is a chance that you'll be working from the same building as, if you're in Group A, working from the same building as founders from Group B. On the question of networking and collaborating, both programs are big on networking and collaboration because we know that's very important. You start to see it from during the program. So not just networking with the first program, not just networking with the innovation and the accelerator program, it's exposing you to founders who have raised Series A rounds, founders that have exited, exposing you to angel investors, institutional investors, just the right kind of supports, because we know with your network, you can change the world. So absolutely, you will network and collaborate with founders from the other program, but not just with them. There will be several more opportunities to network and collaborate during the program.
Just to add, there will be lots of opportunities to network with the ARM subsidiary businesses. So there are 7 subsidiary businesses operating in different verticals. If you do find that their businesses aligns, or rather you have a value proposition that may support or enhance any product or service offered by any of the businesses, we're happy to facilitate those conversations. In fact, it's one of our main objectives to get you to be able to speak with the ARM subsidiary businesses and see where you have areas of synergy and alignment. That can lead into an integration that may have 2 possible outcomes. One is that business may create a product leveraging a platform that you've built, or that business may distribute its products and services through your channels. So depending on where the synergy lies and where business value can be derived, there can be integration opportunities that can materialize, that can result in a business benefit for both parties, both the startups and the ARM subsidiary business.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. We have another question from Raymond Jaja, or is it Raymond Yaya? I apologize if I butchered your last name. Raymond would like to know if during the due diligence checks, is it compulsory for the financial records of your business to be in the name of your incorporated company? Sounds shady already, but I'm sure you have an answer.
To be in the name of your incorporation company? Yeah.
So basically, he has a different name on the business records, on the financial records, other than the name of the company.
Gotcha. Honestly, that's, and Ina, please correct me if I'm wrong, that seems like a small issue that can easily be fixed. So what will be flagged during financial due diligence is just checking that your numbers are right, ensuring you're not involved in any form of fraud, money laundering, or just anything shady. So having a small issue like that is something that we can fix for you, and I think this applies to both programs.
That is correct. So as long as that company, or rather the financials that you're claiming is yours, does not belong to another company, and as long as you can provide evidence that even though the financial bears a different name, it's actually the same company. And again, I have to stress that you need to provide evidence that you're not using the financials from a different entity as you know, revenues generated by your company. That would be deemed fraudulent, right? So the due diligence process is to ensure that you have all of the controls in place, all of the governance in place, where, you know, existing regulations require you to be registered with a particular entity, government entity, whatever it is. It just makes sure that you tick all of those boxes. But we do have situations where companies are registered in a different name, but are operating under a different business name. But as long as they're able to show evidence that it's the same entity, it should be a small issue.
Great. A question on, or notification for Oluwaduni. I think John says he's trying to access Techstars website. He may be having some issues, so if we could leave the link in the chat, so he probably would access as well.
Yeah, I just sent his dummy, but I'll also drop it here.
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, we have another question. I'm just trying to make sense of it. So this is for the ARM Labs Innovation Program, I believe. It says the 50K, is it part of the workspace payment that they get during the program, or do they get all the cash? So basically this is a funding structure sort of situation.
Yes, so the workplace is part of the additional benefits in addition to the 50K investment. So you do get 50K cash, but when I say cash, it's actually going to be an electronic transfer into an account. So you're not going to come and take cash from ARM. But you do get 50K, and in addition to that, you do get office space to work from during the duration of the program. So it's an additional benefit. You don't pay for the workspace from the 50K you get from ARM Labs. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I need permission for this one. Are we going to get a recorded version of this webinar? Oluwaduni, Ina, can we send them a recording of this webinar when we're done? Yay?
I don't have any objections.
It is your face, so I need. So yes, the answer seems like a yes. You will be getting to watch us over and over, because some people missed the earlier parts of the webinar. Hi, this is from Olukayode Kolawole. Hi, what if I have built an MVP, done a public testing with our target market, but it's still pre-revenue company? What program should I apply for? What do I qualify for?
Built an MVP, you have a product.
Done public testing with target market, but it's still pre-revenue, hasn't made any money.
The first question that comes to mind is not even, the first thing that comes to mind isn't even an answer to the question. The first thing that comes to mind is, why haven't you made any money if it's a public product? So I would say apply to both. I'm curious. I really want to know why you haven't made any money. So yeah, just by my curiosity, please apply to both. Also happy to, I'm sure, also happy to have a chat with you. I don't know if I can go ahead and speak about this, Ethan. Can I?
I think there's a follow-up that says we need, if you can leave a contact that they can reach, that they'd like to have in-depth conversation for. I think that's across 3 different questions for Favor and Anthony.
So I will drop my
Anthony
email
Bennett.
address. I will drop my email address. I'm sure, I don't know, Ina or Damlari will share that as well. But the Techstars Accelerator is hosting a launch event in Lagos in the coming weeks. So just keep your eyes glued to Tech Cabal, Tech Points, Disrupt Africa. Follow us on our Instagram pages. We will publicize the events. We're going to host events across 3 to 5 African cities where you'll be able to meet the Techstars Lagos team. and have private one-on-one office hours with us and ask all your questions. I would really like to discuss why you have a public product where you're not making any money yet.
He said he did a test publicly, so I'm not sure it's available for everyone. He did a test with the target market and probably just withdrew it or something. So maybe it was public for a period and then took it away. I don't know. I'm not speaking for him. It's not my cousin. If you're thinking, I don't know him. Okay, let's go to the next question. We're out of time, but guys, can we do 5 more minutes, maybe 10 more? Because there's still quite a few questions. If you guys are okay, and then we can shut it down.
Sure,
Jenny, you good?
Yeah, I'm having a fantastic time.
Awesome, awesome. Good evening. I'm Tom Brown Godwin. Yeah, please, during the ARM Labs Innovation Program for businesses that do not reside in Lagos, do they have to move to Lagos during the 6-month cohort? Yeah, when if selected, essentially.
Yes, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah, I think this is meant.
So it's a hybrid program that combines both physical program activities and virtual program activities. So when you do have the physical program activities, we will need you to come down to Lagos, and because that's what a physical program activity requires, that you're physically there in person. But maybe not during the entire duration of the program, but you will have to, for the duration of the program, at least when we do have physical activities, you need to be in Lagos physically in person.
Okay. Is that the same though for the Lagos Textiles Accelerator program? Hello, Jenny.
It's a little different because you have to be here for the entire duration of the program. So you have to be here for the 14 weeks. Last year, our participants from Kenya moved to Nigeria. So you have to be physically present in Lagos for the duration of the program.
So if someone is flying all the way from Kenya to be here for 14 weeks, well, what excuse do you have? Yeah. At least you can get to Lagos by road. The people in Kenya can't come by road.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a different webinar entirely. But let's not get. What is the? I saw this question, so I lost it for a second. There it is. What are the integration opportunities with ARM if I do get selected into the ARM Labs Innovation Program?
So I did give 2 examples of possible outcomes from a partnership conversation with any of the subsidiary businesses. And an example could be that a subsidiary businesses may determine that they may be able to create a new product or a particular use case on an existing product, leveraging a platform that you have built. So I'll give you an example. We in one of the programs, actually in both programs, we did have a property tech company that offered something called fractional real estate investments. So what the company did was offer the ability to be able to purchase a fraction of a real estate. And we, that kind of value proposition can be very interesting to either the real estate subsidiary of ARM or the investment management subsidiary of ARM. And any of those 2 subsidiaries can decide to offer fractional real estate investment services on their digital channels, leveraging the platform that this startup has built. Okay. We do have a startup as well that has a network of agents that operate in the informal sector. And that could be a possible integration opportunity for our pensions, ARM pension subsidiary, where they may decide to leverage the network, agent distribution network of this startup in the informal sector to sell micro pensions if they choose to, if those conversations lead there. So there are distribution opportunities for ARM products through your channels to a customer segment that the ARM subsidiary business is looking to target, like as is the case in the last example I gave. Or there may be opportunities to create and build new products leveraging the platform or a technology that the startup has built. So it could be both ways.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward. I have a question here from, okay, this was just, I think it's Tohib, he's looking for more cash. It says, is there an opportunity to pitch to venture capitalists after the program is over?
Oh, I'm sure you like Oluwaduni's answer to that question.
Go first. What do you want to go first?
Yeah. Right. So one of the things we actually deliberately try to do is to help and assist you in raising follow-on rounds. And follow-on round essentially just means any other investment that you're able to raise after you receive the equity investment during the program. Okay, so we will expose you to the network of investors that we have so that you can then convince them to take the same decision that we've made to invest in your company. So we will open the door, but it's left to you to be able to convince them that your business is viable enough to get them to write a check. So the answer is yes, we'll actively get you involved in opening the doors to potential investors, but it's your duty to be able to convince them in the way that you convinced us.
Of course, similar to Ina, but with the ARM Labs Lagos Accelerator, and I think simply because it's a longer program, we have more time to do certain things and just hone in on specific areas. So the ARM Labs Lagos Texas Accelerator is split into 3 phases. The first phase is mentorship and orientation. So your first 2 weeks for orientation, and then weeks 3 and 4, where you're meeting about 120 mentors in 2 weeks. Weeks for month 2, which is week 5 to week 8, is workshops, personal conversations with CEOs, founders who have built successful companies and scaled across the continent. And when you get to month 3, which is relevant to the question asked, that month is solely focused on fundraising. So we're helping you refine your pitch, we're helping you refine your decks, we're bringing investors to speak to you. We actually have something called Investor Magic, which is 4 days of speaking to investors nonstop. With the previous cohort, we had founders speak to about 15 to 36 investors through the week. And of course, the program ends with demo day. For the previous demo day, we had over 400 attendees in person, and more than 50% of those were institutional and angel investors. All the big ecosystem players, all the big investors in the African ecosystem were well represented. And we had an additional 2,500 plus people tuning online. So yes, we will expose you to venture capitalists, we will expose you to angel investors, institutional investors. And what we say is that Techstars is for life. So we will continue to provide support to you after the program. And what many startups go on to do right after the program is raise their first round. So your first couple of months after the program is just focused on, our focus for you is to help you raise that round. So similar to what Ina said, at the end of the day, it is your duty, but we will support you as much as possible. An interesting number to put out there is that the average Techstars startup after the accelerator, the average raise post-program is $1 million. So if we've done that, and we've had over 3,417 startups, we have more than 3,417 startups in our accelerator. So if we've replicated that with so many startups, we can definitely do it again with you if you apply to the ARM Labs Lagos Techstars Accelerator.
So essentially, both programs have different strategies to help you to engage with investors and get you to raise money after you've received the investment. And at various stages, there are different things that you need to do to be able to convince an investor. And both programs have specially designed activities that help you be able to pitch yourself and be able to clearly communicate your value proposition and clearly communicate the potential for growth, which is typically what investors look for. In summary, yeah.
Thank you very much, Ina. Thank you very much, Oluwajeni. Now we have questions that are sort of trying to define exactly where they are so they know exactly what program to apply for. I'm just going to take them quickly and we'll round up soon. But the short version, well, there's one here that's pretty straightforward. It says, if I'm selected and I have to move to Lagos, will the Labs Innovation Program take care of expenses like feeding and accommodation?
You are receiving investment already. So if you had to move to a new geographic environment, for example, to
Or
acquire new
work.
customers, I mean, you would be using the revenues that you've made or whatever it is you're using, the resources you're using to sustain your business to be able to acquire customers so you can grow. It's very similar to the reason why you're joining an innovation program or an accelerator. You are trying to access funding and the network of investors and partners that can help your business grow. So you would need to decide whether you want to use part of the investment you've gotten by getting into the program to fund your accommodation or whatever. But you're already receiving investments, you're already receiving access to a network you ordinarily wouldn't have access to. So I think it's fair for you to have to use your resources to cater for your accommodation and feeding and so on and so forth. Isn't that fair?
Can I have some more, sir? Yeah, that's the gotta keep asking. I don't blame my people. That was for Marvelous Major, by the way. Let me call your name out so people know who's asking for more. I have an interesting one from David Nwane. He says, I have a company in tech talent. I have made some revenue servicing some local companies within the last year and a half. However, I've made some mistakes and errors and I want to restart all over. So he basically shut it down. And I don't have a product yet, but I can spin one. I'm very clear on the idea. Which program will best suit my need?
So it sounds like you don't have an MVP anymore. Or you did have an MVP, but you've shut down that business essentially, and you're trying to pivot to a new business model that you're looking to then build an MVP around. If that is correct, then perhaps you're more suited for the ARM Labs Innovation Program. But if you do have an MVP, like we earlier said, the difference between both programs is that with one, the minimum criteria is that you must have a minimum viable product that you are able to offer to your customers. But in the other, you don't have to have an MVP as long as you have a very strong value proposition that addresses a problem that gives you the opportunity to scale and grow and become a successful business. And the innovation program essentially just helps you to refine your business model and help you get to a stage where you have an MVP and ready for launch in the market. But again, one thing to mention is that it's very, very common for founders to pivot when things aren't working. And I mean, the startups that typically are very successful are the ones who are able to adapt and change to an ever-changing market environment, whether it's a competitive environment or whether it's your customers. And you must be able to make those kind of decisions to pivot to a new business model if the one that you're currently involved in isn't working.
Absolutely. And just on the pivoting issue, so definitely only apply to the ARM Labs Lagos Texas Accelerator if you have an MVP. But a common theme a common trend we have observed is that a lot of the startups or a portion of the startups that apply to the Texas Accelerator end up pivoting during the program. So they come into the program with one idea, and by the 4th or 5th week, after pitching to multiple people and just getting feedback, they realize that they're looking at their idea the wrong way, or they're solving the wrong problem, or they're approaching the problem in a different way. So as a founder, and this is just generally speaking, do not be afraid to pivot, adapt, and survive. Very important. Pivoting is never a bad thing.
In fact, startups who are not willing to pivot are the ones who are most likely to have a failed business.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because one key quality of every successful founder is being able to adapt, learn from failures. Success, you cannot succeed without failing. And so failure is an inevitable ingredient for success. But failure is only useful when you've learned from failure and then you're able to do things differently based on what you've learned. So as a startup, you will go through several phases where some things succeed, some things fail. But when something fails, what the difference between successful and unsuccessful startups are those who learn from that failure and adapt and change and evolve based on learnings from failures in the past.
Absolutely.
That's very good advice. Thanks a lot. Philip Adui wants to know from both facilitators, will you continue to mentor those who basically graduated from the Accelerator and Innovation Program even after the end of the program?
Yes, we definitely will. We have a saying, I can confidently answer yes for both startups, and I think a good reflection of that is the office space. offering that comes for free. But at Techstars, we have a saying, Techstars is for life. So even after you graduated from the program, even after you raised your first round, we will continue to support you. And the support isn't just with fundraising. For instance, 2 weeks ago, for the inaugural Techstars class, so the program ended in March, but just in May, we organized an event in partnership with Global, where we had the CEO and founder of Global come to speak to them. So organizing sessions like that, providing fundraising support, you have access to your perks for life. Techstars is for life. So the support is forever.
As I say, the ARM Labs Innovation Program. So it is in our have access to people who can mentor you and continue to guide you even after the program. And this is the reason why ARM Labs has a partnership with a company called TVC, led by a gentleman called Tommy Davis. Tommy Davis is very well known in the tech community. He's mentored so many successful startups and is extremely knowledgeable. And what we do is ARM Labs has a retainer relationship with TVC. And once you exit from the ARM Labs Innovation Program, you're actually handed over to TVC for continuous mentorship post-program. And we still keep our doors open to enable you to access our network of mentors should you need advice at any point in time, because it is in our interest for your company to continue to grow. And that means continuously getting guidance and direction from all of the mentors within our network to ensure you don't make certain mistakes that could essentially be detrimental to your business.
Fantastic. Okay, we are well over time. I'm going to ask one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. And this is the reverse of something we answered earlier. Of course, in the spirit of trying to get everything possible, this person is trying to find out if they have already been selected for the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Accelerator and has gone through it, can they still apply for the ARM Labs Innovation Program when it comes around?
Yeah.
I'm going to borrow Ina's analogy of the primary school and secondary school. So we consider the ARM Labs Innovation Program primary school, and we consider the ARM Labs Lagos Textiles Program as secondary school. So practically speaking, if you have graduated from secondary school, do you then go back and say you want to re-enroll in primary school? The answer is no. So the answer to that is you can choose to, but I do not see a reason why you would even be considering it.
I think there was one story of an 80-year-old woman that went back to school or something. I'm not sure. But again, it's not impossible. It's just not something that happens very often.
You're going too far. I think I know a couple of friends that should go back to secondary school. That's another primary school. That's a different presentation. Okay, like I said earlier, we are sticklers for time, even though we did start a few minutes after, just to let people in. We will answer all the questions. Olodunni, quickly, do you have any quick advice for startups looking to participate in either program?
Definitely. I always say to founders, be your true self, bring your true self to the table. The easiest way to be remembered, remember, both programs are going to speak to hundreds of founders and interview founders. Various founders are going to have amazing numbers. So bring your true self to the table. That's the best way to connect with those who will be interviewing you. Do not lie about your numbers. Do not exaggerate your numbers. If you lie, we will find out. Even if we do not find out that day, if you happen to make it to the next stage, we will find out at some point. If you're a team of 2 to 3 founders and you have all the founders on the call, a common mistake I see is letting only the CEO speak. That's never a good look. So all team members should actively contribute and answer the questions during the interview. But yeah, I would say the most important thing is just be honest, be open, take feedback well, do not be argumentative on the call, and be your best self. Wishing you all the best.
Good advice. Thank you so much, Olodunni. Ina, any words of wisdom for?
Absolutely. And just one word, your team is extremely critical. When VCs, accelerators, or anybody invests in early stage companies, the bet is on the team. Always remember that. And so as founders, we've seen situations where founders tend not to want to share responsibility in terms of running their companies with anybody else. But the truth is, one of the key qualities of a successful founder is self-awareness, recognizing where you have strengths and where you have weaknesses. So you must build a team that complements you where you're weak. It's extremely rare to have a founder that has strengths all around. You always have weaknesses, everybody does. So one important thing is for you to identify what your strengths are, and you need to be very honest about what your weaknesses are and make sure you build a team that complements you in areas where you're weak. That way, when you're being considered for selection into any of these programs, the people who are responsible for making that decision can clearly see that you have a complete team that has people with different strengths, different competencies coming together, and the collective strengths actually is what then translates to the probability of that company becoming a very successful company. So make sure you build a very strong team. Make sure you have a very strong shared vision across the team, and make sure that everyone in your team is committed and are all focused on achieving the same goals. And every other thing will fall into place, whether it's raising funds, whether it's acquiring partners, or anything that you need to be able to grow a successful business. Make sure you build a strong team, ensure that everybody shares the same vision, the same dream, and the same goals for growing that company. There will be disagreements. In fact, if there are no disagreements among the founders or amongst the team, then there's something wrong. But you must always find a way that whatever it is you're disagreeing on, you're all working towards the same goal. And most, like I said, make sure you have a solid, strong team, because that's what defines the difference between early stage companies that make it to become successful companies and those who don't.
Fantastic. Stronger together. That's what I got from that. Thank you so much, Oluwaduni. Thank you so much, Ina, for your time and patience and answering those questions over and over and imparting the knowledge. We really appreciate it. And like we did promise, well, like I did promise on your behalf, we are going to answer all the questions we have that we haven't answered yet, and then send them back to every single person who has participated today. And that brings us to you, our audience. We thank you so much for taking out your time on a Friday evening when pretty sure there's a lot of things you can be doing right now to be here with us and gain this information. We will drop as much links as we can and send them back to you as promised. Thank you so much. You do have a great weekend. Ina and Duni, I guess I will see you guys where I usually see you guys.
Absolutely.
And to everyone, take
Thank
care.
you, everyone. Make sure you apply for the ARM Labs Innovation Program. The call for application closes on June 15th. So go in and put in your applications now. And hopefully we'll see you at the end when the final 5 are being selected. Good luck, and do have a great weekend.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.